Hi, this is writer-director J.R. Bookwalter, and we're going to look at some behind-the-scenes footage from The Dead Next Door. This is actually a trip that I took to Detroit, Michigan to pick up, I'm not sure, it may be the first check for the cash flow of this film, and maybe one of the earliest checks. I'm not sure. There's me driving a van owned by my, at the time, producer and school friend, Jay Shaftstall. We went to high school together. And here we've arrived in Ferndale, Michigan, actually, to be more specific. And there's the outside of the office. This is sort of historical footage, I suppose, because obviously the producer, there's me putting a quarter in the parking meter. We were documenting the entire journey, I guess. But even though I'm not really supposed to say who the executive producer is, I think most people know. I think we've made that clear on the rest of this DVD. So there's Jay, and there's my old manual typewriter, which the first draft or two of this was written on. Here we're pointing to the office suite. Again, won't say who it is, but if you look closely, you can figure it out. That's Kenny Nichols, who was the original director of photography of the film. And now we're flash forwarding to some VHS footage taken during the audition process. This was actually a hole in the upstairs of the this little Quonset hut office that we had, and this was actually the second office I was working at, and I was ramming the camera down this broken shaft and shooting my co-producer, Jolie Jakunis, who was scheduling the film. She's got her production boards there. This is really retro because this is the old way we used to do things, is all of your scenes were on these strips that you would move around and lay out. It was pretty funny. But she was working on doing the scheduling while we were upstairs doing auditions. Anyways, I mentioned this is the second office that we had. I don't have any footage, but there are some photos you'll see in the still galleries of the original office I had. Was actually my a house, the second house that my grandmother had owned, and it was in the basement of that. So here you'll see the outside. There it is of this. And there, when we moved in here, we just moved into the basement. I don't know what it is about this movie and basements, but the top part was a video store, and eventually they left and we took over the whole building. So there's me talking to Jeff Cole, who was production coordinator early on in the film, and you saw him a little bit earlier. This is actually, I don't know if anybody remembers this because this was from 1986. This was Hands Across America. If anybody remembers that, it was where everybody linked. There was supposed to be a chain from coast to coast, from one end of the country to the other, of people holding hands, and I'm not exactly sure what. It was supposed to be some unity thing or whatever, but that's what this was. It went literally right down the street. This is Canton Road in Springfield Township, a suburb of Akron, Ohio. And there's the street when Hands Across America wasn't going on. This is a mix of VHS and some 8 Video 8 and some Super 8. This is Super 8 footage, of course. Hopefully you can tell which is which. There's the Zombie Squad logo designed by my former college roommate, Doc Porter. Here's production designer John Kilo and production assistant Ralph Hanneman working on a set. This is the inside of that Quonset hut building that you were looking at before. And the ceiling was high enough that we were able to build a set in here. So you'll see in a moment. This is the foundation they're building, and the set was recycled several times for the production. Here is the first version of it, which was the farmhouse bedroom set that Scott Spiegel goes in and finds the corpse on the floor and the farmhouse zombie, and it's that scene early in the film. Now this is actually the first time we shot this scene. If you notice, the production design is a bit different. Originally I wanted these stark white walls so that when the blood sprayed out of the zombie's head, it would create this great sort of crimson pattern on the wall. Well, what wound up happening is we shot the first 2 weeks of this film, and there was something wrong with the camera. It was broken. So all this footage was pretty much unusable. You'll see some of it on the outtakes. It was just everything was really dark in the foreground, and the background was lit for whatever reason. Like the wall was exposed, but not what was in front of it. So here I'm setting up. This is a shot that we also did in the finished film, where we see the camera from above. It's just a short bit where Scott Spiegel walks up to this farmhouse zombie, and there you see what it is that we're shooting. So anyway, so yeah, we went to all this trouble. They built this set, and then we basically had to redo it. We had redressed it for something else because it was several different things. I think we used it for 3 different sets. It was Dr. Bo's lab, and also it was the militia room or whatever it was that the cult had, where they would go to get their weapons, where you always see the Commander Carpenter character. So this is the earliest footage. And there's John Kilo playing the body, basically, of the farmhouse zombie. There was a hole in the wall behind him where he stuck his head through. It was not a very comfortable situation, but there's some of the crew watching. There was, of course, we made this window where they throw the zombie out of. That had to be part of it. And then the backside had a little bit of the outside of the house. So it was pretty cool. I mean, John Kilo admittedly didn't know what he was doing at this time. He consulted with some people that were good with scenic design for theater, and they helped. And just, they did a great job, because the set really, even this version of it, which I thought maybe looked a little too much like a porn set because of the white walls, but that was my bad judgment call. Fortunately, when we redid it some weeks later, we had a little bit more money, and we did some better wallpaper and such. There's Jolie and I playing around between takes, and this was actually the downstairs of the farmhouse, and this is more of that first couple weeks of shoot. There's Scott Spiegel and Pete Ferry and Jolie again, but this is from the first couple weeks of the shoot that was also not used. This footage was also reshot. It was really, I'll tell you, a distressing time to to have that stuff. Here's that's Bob Hudson, the camera operator, Mike Tolochko, the director of photography, Tina Gill, the production coordinator or supervisor, Michael Todd, the assistant director, Bill Morrison, makeup effects. That's me, unfortunately. Tina again, me again.
The girl will not listen.
This was us playing around while we were shooting some of the scenes where the car drives by, some of the country. Now here is, we're back at what we called the Bow House location, which was a house that a friend of mine that I went to high school, his aunt, I believe, owned this property. And they had a house, there was, on the front part of the property, there was a house that was basically just pretty ramshackle. They weren't really doing anything. It was standing empty. And they had built a new house much further down the driveway. It was quite a big property. So they gave us free reign of this house, and we pretty much lived in there. I mean, most of the, not literally, but most of the, through most of the prep and most of the production, we definitely went in there and took good advantage of it. I don't think there was any electricity in there, so we had to use generators and such, and run power from another location. Here's David Barton, who did a lot of the key makeup effects, dressing some of the extras. And I believe this was one of the days we had, probably one of our bigger extras days, where we had shot some of the stuff in the field with where he throws the grenade and the one zombie goes up in the air. And I think that's what most of this stuff is. Yeah, because there's a bucket in the ground and a hole, and I actually did a lot of the explosives work. I had made this explosive. It was a flat pack, and it worked really well. I mean, I think it worked better than I did. It was funny, that little Charlie Brown Christmas tree we set there was sort of like just so that you know where you're at. But yeah, there's all those extras running down the field. Of course, the only bummer of this scene was it was shot where the sun was behind them, so they're a little backlit. But these are the things you learn when you're making your first film and you don't know any better. And there's me grinning from ear to ear at how well that worked. Now we flash to downtown Akron, Ohio. And this is Main Street in downtown. Here we're laying some tracks for there's a long dolly shot at the beginning of this sequence. And we closed off this block on a Sunday. We had to buy some liability insurance to be able to do it, hire some police officers to block off both ends of the road. And it was a big deal. I mean, as you can see, there was a lot of people just came down and were like, what's going on here? And we had a lot of extras and playing zombies and victims, and there were cars, and we were pouring blood in the street, and it was a big deal, I have to say. There's Louise Leininger, who was our one of the two wardrobe girls, and Susie is the other one to the right there. There's Kelly Helmick rehearsing the stunt. which unfortunately you really don't get a really good view of on film, but people are always impressed by it, but I'm always like, damn, it's not quite what I wanted, need more coverage there. But here's some test footage when we went up, and I went up in this small plane just to kind of get an idea of what we were looking at. If you see how we did this shot now, there's a landing strip right there. So as we're coming down and you see all those zombies, we're actually landing. And as we pan across here, this was basically what we called our big day. There's a shot here in front of the Goodyear Aerospace where they used to park the blimp, and there was the Soapbox Derby Downs and the Rubber Bowl. I mean, we shot a lot of big zombie scenes that day. Here's me screwing around with Maria and Jeff Welch and a number of other people. This was also the same place where that set was. Like I said, we recycled it. That room was basically the same four walls, just dressed differently. So we got some good use out of that. And here's Scott and Pete playing around between takes. A lot of this footage in these outtakes that you're seeing where we would, the film rolls on Super 8 at 24 frames were only 2.5 minutes long, the 50-foot rolls. So a lot of times we'd reach the end of a roll, we couldn't do another take, so we would just roll off the end of the film, rather than waste it. And that's what you're seeing here is a lot of the cast and crew just goofing off, and everybody, here you're going to see them doing some line dancing or whatever it is they're doing here. We also shot a lot of 200-foot magazines for this film. We had one camera that would do 200-foot magazines, so then we were able to get 10 minutes or something out of a roll. So I'm not sure which is which. It's hard to tell what was what here when it's all cut together like this. But here's, I think this was actually the first time we shot the scene in Anna's bedroom, which was not used, and we reshot it later. There was a lot of that. There's me yawning, don't know why. And here's Barbara Gay / Barbara Katz-Norad, who has worked with me on several films. Probably most recently Dead and Rotting, which was a film I produced for Full Moon. And here's camera operator Bob Hudson again, at the end of a take. This is actually the rotunda at Springfield High School, where I went to high school. When we went to do some pickup shots, that was where we did. Boy, this stuff just keeps coming. That's Chris Briding. He was one of the camera crew. We actually called him The Rock. He did Slate and a number of other tasks, but his name was Chris The Rock Briding. And here I'm in a wheelchair doing that dolly shot back when they are at the Zombie Squad headquarters. The guy who pokes his head in here is Ken Ingersoll, who was our location sound recordist. There's a little bit of a rare look at shooting one of the scenes. I know we did 2 cameras on this, so I'm not sure why this third camera was running, because that's actually Super 8 film, but it's kind of interesting. Here's Ken, and that's Joe Sattel, who was our gaffer, and Maria Markovich, who was played Anna, goofing around. And Joe, we had nicknames for everybody, I guess, but Ken was Wacky Ken, the sound guy, and that's me. I don't know what the obsession is with aiming a camera at somebody and they have this horrible look on your face. See the sticking tongues out, putting mouths up to the cameras. Here's Bob again he's doing the gag where they're lobbing their grenades over the bushes when they're escaping the bow house. He loved every time I turned around he was doing that little gag. So here's Mike Tolochko displaying his Dead Next Door t-shirt. We actually had t-shirts made for that big day shoot with a lot of the extras, and sold quite a few of them. Now here was actually my third office, which is where we wound up finishing the movie at. We did our final pickup shots here. I had actually a friend, Doc Porter, the same guy who made the Zombie Squad logo, did that sign for me. And here's this was our sort of set mascot, Howard, who was my cat. He traveled with us to Washington, D.C. when we did the Washington, D.C. footage, and he was hilarious. We'd drive around in that Zombie Squad wagon, and he would just sit on the front dash, and he loved it. He loved just traveling around. Here's Michael Todd removing one of the millions of times he had to do this makeup for Jason. And it's hard to tell in the movie, but if you look closely, the makeup is never the same twice. I mean, it really is not. There's me shooting through the mirror. And that was a shot, actually, that was never used in the finished piece. So here's some later footage. This is actually now in Video 8 footage. And this is pickup shots. And if you look, not even so closely, you can see snow all over the place back there. that ought to tell you we shot pretty much in all 4 seasons over the course of a couple of years. And these were shots that we either missed in the principal photography or they were just too dark. They were underexposed. So we kept going back and hammering away at them.
So, Mr. Bookwalter, what are you doing here?
This is the wax copy or wax bust of Jeff Welch's head. He plays Commander Carpenter, and he gets the zombies grab the head like this and pull his head apart, and then his eyes are going to roll, and it's going to be basically pretty neat.
Uh-huh.
But of course, it never made it in the film, and the head was never finished. So, but there's some footage of what it might have looked like. Here's Mike Grossi dubbing his voice as Mercer. We did a 8-track sort of temp mix where it had most of the actors' voices in it, and then we actually did some Foley work and rebuilt some sound effects. And there's a couple of deleted scenes you'll see. That's from that cut. So that was had like some sort of phony temp sound mix. Now here we are back at the farmhouse exterior where we shot, shooting some fun. These are getting close towards the end of when we were shooting the final pickups. So this is again some Video 8 footage. There's Floyd Ewing, who also worked on my 2 shows after this, Robot Ninja and Skinned Alive. He starred in both of those as well. And here's Mike Telachko double, triple, quadruple checking his light meter reading probably at this point. I got to tell you, Super 8 with these cameras, we had these just sort of generic chin-on cameras. It's not as easy as you would think. It's not very point and shoot, at least to get professional results. Jolie mugging for the camera.
Is this picking me up?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Documentary footage here?
Yeah.
The scene we're doing right now is where I am kidnapped by Raimi in color. This is an excellent scene for me as an actor to portray because I don't have to make up my hands. See, it's this zombie thing. You hire a bunch of necrophiliacs, you dress like a zombie, you just get more than you can take.
And here we are, just so you can see the opposite end of things. This is the backyard of my 3rd office. And here's what we were shooting. Basically, this binoculars point of view of them kidnapping Jason. And there were several scenes that were just really became annoying by the end of it because we just had to shoot them over and over and over again. Here's another one. We would shoot these, what's called poor man's process for the shots of them driving in the zombie squad wagon. And that's what that was. And here you can see how the process works. It's basically people waving cards in front of the light to give the illusion of light passing, and then someone just kind of gently rocking the car to give it the. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It works okay in this movie. I've seen it done better.
Peace and rub, baby. Hi, Scott. What do you know, Betty?
Tell me about yourself, Pete.
What? About me?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you want to know?
How is it to be the leading man in The Dead Next Door?
I think what it's cut out to be, I'll tell you that.
Such as?
It's a lot of waiting around. It's a lot of waiting for this movie to come out, but it'll happen. It's very impressive. I'm very impressed with everybody who worked on this project.
Good.
We're going to talk to Scott Plummer about his margarine. Mr. Plummer, what kind of margarine do you use?
I like shed spread.
And why?
It's less fat, low cholesterol.
Chiffon.
Thank you.
And here's one of the final bits of pickup shots, and this shot is actually not in the movie, but we do have this cool behind-the-scenes footage, so you kind of get the idea of what it was like for him to have to do this and gag on this horrible tongue. And that pretty much wraps up our behind-the-scenes footage, and I'll be back for more.